Hello, I'm Dr. Emily Carter, a medical doctor focused on providing thoughtful, evidence-based care and supporting patients in achieving better health outcomes. More than half of people over 60 wake up at night to pee. That's not a guess. According to the NIH's clinical reference Stat Pearls, more than 50% of men and women over 60 have what's medically called nocturia. That means waking up one or more times a night to urinate. If you've started waking once, twice, sometimes three times a night, you are not imagining it. You are not broken, and you are absolutely not alone. Here's why it matters more than just feeling tired. Disrupted sleep from nighttime bathroom trips doesn't just steal your rest, it raises your risk of trips, stumbles, and falls in a dark hallway, which is exactly why doctors take this seriously instead of brushing it off. 3 a.m. half asleep, reaching for a wall that isn't there. Here's something most people get wrong about this. And it's not about how much water you drink before bed. Most people assume it's their bladder getting weaker or just one of those things that comes with age. That belief is incomplete. And in a few minutes, I'll show you exactly why. By the end of this video, you'll understand precisely what's happening inside your body after dark, and you'll have a simple, practical routine you can start tonight to calm it down. If you've ever felt like nobody fully explained this to you in a rushed 10-minute appointment, that's exactly why I make these videos. If that sounds useful, go ahead and subscribe and tap like. It genuinely helps this reach more people dealing with the same thing. Let's start with the belief almost everyone walks in with. Most people believe nighttime bathroom trips come down to one of two things: drinking too much before bed or a bladder that's simply wearing out with age. That belief is reasonable on the surface. It's just not the full picture. You've probably heard a version of this from your doctor. Try cutting back on fluids in the evening. Your parents may have called it a weak bladder. Every bladder leak commercial on TV quietly reinforces the same idea that the bladder itself is the problem. Here's the part that gets left out. According to research summarized by the National Association for Continence and detailed in the NIH Stat Pearls clinical reference, the most common driver of nighttime urination in older adults isn't the bladder running out of room. It's something called nocturnal polyuria. That means your kidneys producing an unusually large share of your day's urine specifically at night while you sleep. Picture it this way. Your brain normally releases a hormone overnight called antidiuretic hormone, or ADH. That means a chemical signal that tells your kidneys to slow down and concentrate urine while you sleep. Think of ADH as a dimmer switch your brain flips low each night so your kidneys idle gently, instead of running at full output. For a lot of people past 50, that dimmer switch doesn't turn down as far as it used to. So, if you've spent years cutting your evening water in half and you're still wide awake at 2 a.m., that's actually the clue. The water was rarely the real problem. Something else is filling that bladder while you sleep. And it's been happening quietly night after night long before you started questioning it. That something else is what we're going to unpack next, because once you see how it actually works, the fix becomes a lot more obvious than drink less water. Let's go inside your body for a minute, because this is the part that actually explains everything. Your kidneys filter your blood all day, every day, producing urine continuously. Normally, your brain's nightly rise in ADH tells your kidneys to slow that process down once you're asleep so your bladder can hold through most of the night. That's the system working as designed. Here's where it gets interesting for a lot of people over 50. As we age, the nightly rise in ADH often gets blunted. That means weaker and less reliable than it used to be. Your kidneys don't get the slow-down signal as strongly. They keep producing urine at something closer to daytime speed, straight through the night. But ADH isn't the only piece. There's a second mechanism, and it's one almost nobody explains clearly: fluid that pools in your legs during the day. If you're on your feet a lot or you sit for long stretches, gravity pulls fluid downward into your lower legs over the course of the day. Doctors call this dependent edema. That means swelling caused by fluid settling in the lowest parts of your body. Your legs act like a sponge that slowly soaks up extra fluid while you're upright. Here's the moment that changes everything. The instant you lie down flat to sleep, that pooled fluid is no longer fighting gravity. It drains back into your central circulation, your bloodstream all at once. Your kidneys detect that sudden extra volume and respond the only way they know how, by producing more urine right when you're trying to stay asleep. That's not a metaphor. That's precisely what's happening behind your bladder, filling up at 1 a.m. A study published in the Journal of Urology and reviewed in clinical sources tracking nocturnal polyuria found this fluid redistribution pattern responsible for a large share of cases, alongside related contributors like high evening sodium intake, which makes your legs hold on to even more fluid during the day, ready to be released the moment you recline. This is why nighttime urination happens for so many people past 50, often not just because of age itself, but because of how fluid moves through your body after dark and how much of it got stored in your legs earlier that day. Now, here's where it gets genuinely interesting. A population study out of Finland, led by researcher Kari Tikkanen and published in the Journal of Urology, found that men aged 70 to 79 had roughly 155 times greater odds of having nocturia compared to men under 30. That's not a small shift. That's a near total transformation in how your body handles fluid overnight as you move through your 50s, 60s, and 70s. How old are you? Drop it in the comments below. I want to know exactly which age group this is hitting hardest so I can shape what we cover next. Sleep apnea adds another layer for some people. When breathing is repeatedly interrupted overnight, it can trigger a hormone response that further suppresses ADH and increases urine production. One more reason unexplained: severe nocturia is worth mentioning to your doctor rather than just working around it indefinitely. Stay with me, because here's where this stops being abstract and starts looking like someone you might recognize. Let me walk you through a typical example of how this shows up. Based on the kind of pattern described again and again in research and clinical reports on nocturia, picture someone like Frank, 67, the kind of guy who slept through anything his whole life and quietly prided himself on it. Waking up at night for him felt like a personal failure, not a medical pattern. His first move was the obvious one: cut off all fluids after 3 p.m., no coffee after lunch, no water after dinner. Weeks went by, nothing changed. He started blaming his prostate the way a lot of men do by default and resigned himself to just dealing with it. He was waking 3 times a night, once around midnight, again near 2, and a final time before sunrise. By morning, he was foggy, short-tempered, and running on fumes. His ankles, he eventually mentioned almost as an afterthought, had been a little swollen by evening for years. He'd never connected the two. That swelling was the real clue. Frank was on a common blood pressure medication from a class called calcium channel blockers, which are well known to cause ankle swelling as a side effect in some people. Fluid was pooling in his legs all day, and the instant he lay down at night, that fluid drained back into circulation and turned into urine. Exactly the mechanism we just walked through. In the kind of behavioral approach studies on this typically test, afternoon leg elevation, daytime compression stockings, and adjusted evening salt and fluid intake people commonly report meaningful improvement within a few weeks. The NIH's own clinical guidance puts a realistic, evidence-based target at roughly a 50% reduction in nighttime trips for most people, rather than complete elimination. For someone going 3 times a night, that's the difference between exhausted and rested. This pattern shows up constantly, fluid pooling quietly in the legs all day, with nobody connecting it to the 2 a.m. wake-up. That's exactly why this is worth 30 seconds of real explanation instead of just drink less water. Now here's the practical part: what you can actually do starting tonight. I call this the evening drain. The whole idea is simple: Deal with the fluid in your legs before you lie down instead of letting your body deal with it for you at 1 a.m. Here's the part most people never reach because they stopped watching too early, and it's the part that actually changes your nights. Part 1, the afternoon window. Sometime in the mid to late afternoon, ideally 2 to 3 hours before you'd normally start winding down, spend 20 to 30 minutes lying back with your legs elevated above the level of your heart. A couple of pillows under your calves on the couch works fine. This lets gravity help drain the fluid that's settled in your lower legs back into your bloodstream while you're still upright and active so your kidneys process it, and you can use the bathroom before bed, not after. If you're on your feet most of the day, daytime compression stockings do something similar, gently squeezing fluid out of your legs hours before you ever lie down. Part 2, the evening window from dinner onward. Go easy on salt at dinner. Sodium pulls extra water into your tissues, which means more fluid stored in your legs by evening, which means more fluid available to drain into your bladder overnight. Skip alcohol and caffeine after dinner too. Alcohol actively suppresses the hormone that's supposed to slow your kidneys down at night, and caffeine acts as a mild diuretic on top of directly irritating the bladder. Front load your fluids earlier in the day instead of restricting them entirely. Your body needs water, it just doesn't need most of it arriving after 6 p.m. Part 3, right before bed. Use the bathroom, then wait quietly for a minute or two and try again. Doctors call this double voiding, and it simply means giving your bladder a second chance to empty fully before you lie down for the night. Here's a simple self-test you can do tonight. Sit down, push your trouser leg up, and press the pad of your thumb firmly into the skin just above your ankle bone for a full 5 seconds, then let go. If you see a visible dent that takes a few seconds to bounce back, that's mild fluid retention, exactly the kind of pooling the evening drain is built to address. If you're taking a blood pressure medication and you've noticed your socks feel tighter by evening, that's worth a specific mention at your next appointment, not a reason to stop or change anything on your own. There may be a different option available, or your doctor may simply confirm it's expected and manageable. Either way, that's useful context they need, and you're the only one who can hand it to them. Here's exactly what to do tonight. Spend half an hour this afternoon or evening with your legs propped up. Go light on salt at dinner. Skip the nightcap and the late coffee. Use the bathroom twice a minute apart right before bed. Small, specific changes, try not a dramatic overhaul. Let me give you the 3 things to carry away from everything we covered today. 1. Nighttime bathroom trips are usually about where your fluid is sitting, not just how much you drank. 2. The real driver for most people is fluid that pulls in your legs all day and drains into your bladder the moment you lie down. 3. A short afternoon leg elevation window paired with lighter evening salt and a true bathroom routine before bed addresses that directly. I make these videos because most people never get this explained clearly in a 10-minute appointment. Not because anyone's been hiding it from you on purpose, it's simply a lot to cover when the visit is billed for prescriptions, not explanations. This is educational information, not a substitute for medical advice. If anything here resonated, especially the ankle swelling, bring it up with your doctor at your next visit. If you recognize yourself in any part of this, don't just nod along and move on tonight. Try the evening drain once and see what tomorrow morning feels like. Send this to someone who's been quietly cutting out all their evening water for years and still waking up at 2 a.m. wondering why. They'll probably recognize themselves immediately. If this helped, subscribe for more of these clear, practical breakdowns and tap like. It tells me exactly which topics to dig into next.